I am Deanna, 32 years old, and I finally bought my dream house after working tirelessly for years. The excitement of hosting my first housewarming party quickly turned to heartbreak when not a single family member showed up. They all went to see my sister Amanda's new car instead. I sat alone in my empty house, surrounded by untouched food and decorations, when my phone lit up with my father's name. His voice was cold. "We need to talk. Now." If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe to join me on this painful journey toward healing and self-worth. Growing up in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, I always lived in my younger sister, Amanda's shadow. Our childhood home was a comfortable 4-bedroom colonial in a nice middle-class neighborhood, but inside those walls there was an invisible hierarchy that placed me firmly at the bottom. My parents, James and Catherine Wilson, never tried to hide their favoritism. Amanda was their golden child from the moment she was born when I was 4 years old. With her natural charm and outgoing personality, she easily became the center of our family universe. My father, a successful insurance broker, would cancel his meetings to attend Amanda's elementary school plays, but consistently missed my honor roll ceremonies. My mother, a part-time real estate agent, spent hours shopping with Amanda for the perfect prom dress, while telling me to just pick something from the clearance rack for mine. "Amanda just needs more attention," my mother would say whenever I tried to express my feelings. "She's more sensitive than you. You're our strong one, Deanna. You understand, right?" And because I desperately wanted their approval, I always nodded and said I understood. The pattern continued throughout our school years. When I was accepted to the University of Michigan with a partial scholarship for architecture, my parents barely acknowledged it at dinner. 2 weeks later, when Amanda got into Michigan State for business with no scholarship, they threw her a surprise party and invited the entire extended family. "Your sister needs encouragement," my father explained when I questioned the discrepancy. "You always succeed at everything anyway. It comes easily to you." But nothing about my success came easily. I worked 30-hour weeks at a campus coffee shop while maintaining a 3.8 GPA in a demanding program. I joined architecture competitions and won awards that my parents never displayed. I graduated with honors, while Amanda barely passed with a 2.5, yet they threw her a lavish graduation party and simply took me to dinner at my favorite restaurant, which was actually Amanda's favorite. After college, I worked at a prestigious architecture firm in Detroit. I lived frugally in a tiny apartment, saving every possible dollar toward my dream of owning my own home. For 8 years I put in overtime, took on additional freelance projects, and climbed the corporate ladder. When I was promoted to senior architect last year, I finally had enough for a down payment on a house. The house I found was everything I had ever dreamed of: a 1920s craftsman with original hardwood floors, built-in bookshelves, and a charming front porch. It needed work, but I saw its potential immediately. Located in a historic neighborhood in Royal Oak, it was close enough to visit family, but far enough to establish my independence. I spent 6 months renovating it myself on weekends, learning plumbing and electrical work from YouTube videos, sanding floors until my hands blistered, and painting every wall the perfect shade. This house represented more than just property ownership. It was tangible proof that despite being overlooked my entire life, I could create something beautiful for myself. It was my declaration of independence, my way of saying, I mattered, even if my family didn't see it. When the renovations were finally complete, I planned my housewarming party with meticulous care. I sent proper invitations 3 weeks in advance, not just text messages. I specifically chose a Saturday, when I knew everyone in my family was available, confirming multiple times with my mother to make sure the date worked. I planned a menu featuring all our family favorites: my grandmother's Swedish meatballs, my father's preferred bourbon cocktails, and even Amanda's favorite chocolate raspberry cake from the bakery she loved. I created photo displays throughout the house, including many family pictures. I wanted my home to honor my roots, even as I established my own space. I bought new guest towels for the bathroom, splurged on fresh flowers for every room, and even installed additional lighting in the backyard for the evening. The week before the party, I called my parents to confirm attendance. "We wouldn't miss it for the world, honey," my mother assured me. "Dad and I are so proud of you." Those words meant everything to me. Maybe this milestone would finally be the one they recognized. Maybe buying a house on my own at 32 was significant enough to earn their genuine attention and pride. Amanda called me 2 days before the party. "I can't wait to see this house you keep talking about," she said. "Mom says you've been working on it forever. I hope it's worth all that effort." The subtle dig was typical Amanda, but I chose to ignore it. I was determined to make this day positive. "It will be great to have everyone together," I told her sincerely. "I've made all your favorites." "Aw, that's so sweet of you," she replied. "See you Saturday at 4 right." "Yes, 4 o'clock sharp," I confirmed, feeling a surge of anticipation. Finally, my family would see what I had accomplished. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, a clear blue Michigan sky, and just enough breeze to make sitting on my new porch delightful. I woke up at 6 in the morning, too excited to sleep. By 7, I was already cleaning surfaces that were already spotless and rearranging furniture that was perfectly positioned. I spent the morning cooking, filling my kitchen with the familiar scents of childhood recipes. The Swedish meatballs simmered in their savory sauce, just the way my grandmother had taught me. I prepared vegetable platters, cheese boards, and 3 different dips. I baked my mother's favorite lemon bars and picked up Amanda's chocolate raspberry cake. I wanted everyone to feel special, to know I had thought of them specifically when planning this day. At noon, I texted everyone a reminder. "Can't wait to see you all at 4. The address is 823 Oakwood Street. Plenty of parking on the side street." My mother responded immediately. "Looking forward to it, dear." My father, "See you then. Amanda. Wouldn't miss it." Their responses fueled my excitement. I took extra care getting ready, choosing a new dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion. A deep green that complemented my eyes and made me feel confident. I styled my hair, applied makeup more carefully than usual, and even splurged on a new perfume. This was my moment, and I wanted to look and feel my best. My closest friends arrived right at 4. Kate and Michael brought a beautiful houseplant, and Jen and David gifted me a set of handcrafted wine glasses. We opened a bottle of champagne, but I kept glancing at the door waiting for my family. 4:30 came and went. No family. "They're probably just running late," I told my friends, checking my phone again. No messages. At 4:45, I sent a group text. "Everything's ready. Are you on your way?" No response. By 5:15, the party was in full swing, with about 15 friends mingling in my living room and backyard, but the notable absence of any family members hung over me like a cloud. I kept my phone in my hand, checking it every few minutes. I tried calling my mother, but it went straight to voicemail. Same with my father. Amanda's phone rang, but she didn't answer. At 5:30, Kate found me in the kitchen pretending to be busy with the food. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. "Your family still isn't here." "I'm sure there's a good explanation," I said, but my voice cracked slightly. Maybe there was traffic or something. At 6 o'clock, as I was refilling the ice bucket, my phone finally buzzed with a text. My heart leapt. but it wasn't the message I was hoping for. Mom, sorry, honey. We're at the dealership with Amanda. She spontaneously decided to buy that Mercedes she's been eyeing. So exciting. We might stop by later if we're not too tired from all this paperwork. Save us some cake. I stared at the phone in disbelief. My sister had spontaneously decided to buy a car on the exact day and time of my housewarming party, and my parents had chosen to go with her instead of coming to my celebration. The casual tone of my mother's message, as if this were a minor schedule conflict and not a complete rejection, cut deeper than the absence itself. I texted back with shaking hands. The party started 2 hours ago. Everyone's been asking where you are. Mom? Don't be dramatic, Dina. It's just a housewarming. We can see your house any time. This is a big moment for your sister. Just a housewarming. Just the home I had worked toward for 8 years, renovated with my own hands, and carefully prepared to share with them. Just the biggest achievement of my adult life. I put my phone away and plastered on a smile, but my friends could tell something was wrong. The party atmosphere shifted. People spoke in quieter tones, gave me sympathetic glances, and started making excuses to leave earlier than planned. I'm so sorry, Deanna, but we have that thing tomorrow morning, Jen said, around 7:30, not quite meeting my eyes. Of course, no problem, I assured her, maintaining my composure through sheer willpower. By 8:30, everyone had left except Kate, my oldest friend, who knew the history with my family. They're not coming, are they? She asked, as we stood in my kitchen, surrounded by mostly untouched food. No, I said simply, the single word carrying the weight of a lifetime of disappointment. They went to see Amanda's new car instead. Kate helped me pack up leftover food, her silent presence, more comforting than any words could have been. When she finally left around 9, promising to check on me tomorrow, I closed the door behind her and surveyed my empty house. The beautiful space I had created, with its warm lighting and carefully selected furnishings, now felt hollow. The photo displays, featuring family memories, seemed to mock me from the walls. I walked through each room, turning off lights, blowing out candles, and gathering abandoned napkins and plates. In the dining room, Amanda's chocolate raspberry cake sat untouched, its decorative writing, wishing me, "Congratulations on your new home," in elegant script. I took it to the kitchen and dumped it directly into the trash, watching the red raspberry filling leak onto the coffee grounds and vegetable peels like blood. After everyone left, I sank onto my new couch in the silent house. The contrast between my morning excitement and current desolation was so stark it felt physical, like whiplash. I sat motionless for nearly an hour, staring at the wall, trying to process what had happened. This wasn't just about missing a party. This was about a pattern so deeply ingrained in my family dynamic that they couldn't even see it anymore. I had spent my entire life accepting less, making excuses for them, understanding when they prioritized Amanda. But something about this particular rejection broke through my carefully constructed rationalizations. I walked to my home office and pulled out an old photo album from a box I hadn't yet unpacked. Flipping through childhood pictures, I saw what I had always tried to ignore. Photos of Amanda's birthday parties with tables full of presents, while mine showed just a few wrapped gifts. Christmas mornings, where she sat amidst piles of torn wrapping paper while I held 1 or 2 items. School plays, where she was center stage and I stood in the back row. My parents always positioned directly in front of her, with cameras ready. It wasn't just my imagination or oversensitivity, as they had always suggested. The evidence was right there in our family documentation, this visible imbalance of attention and affection. I found my old diaries, next journals I had kept, from ages 10 through 16. Reading through them was like opening a time capsule of hurt. Today was my piano recital. I practiced for weeks and played perfectly. Mom and Dad came, but left halfway through because Amanda wasn't feeling well. My teacher said I could have won the competition if they had stayed to see me get my certificate. Got straight A's again this semester. Dad just nodded and said good job before asking Amanda about her soccer game. She lost, but he took her for ice cream to cheer her up. Mom forgot to pick me up from debate club again. Had to wait 2 hours until Mrs. Peterson drove me home. When I got there, Mom was helping Amanda with her science project. She didn't even apologize. Page after page documented similar incidents. As a child, I had recorded these moments matter-of-factly, without analysis or complaint, as if cataloging weather patterns. This was simply how things were. The sun rose in the east, water was wet, and my parents prioritized Amanda over me. What struck me now as an adult, reading these entries, was how I had internalized this treatment. I never questioned whether I deserved better. I never expressed anger. I simply accepted my position as the less important daughter and tried harder to earn their attention. I closed the diary and returned to the living room, looking at the space I had created with new eyes. This house represented more than a financial milestone. It was my declaration of independence from a family system that had never valued me appropriately. But by inviting them here, by desperately seeking their approval even now, I had given them the power to hurt me again. My phone chimed with a text from Amanda. "Check out my new baby. Isn't she gorgeous?" Attached was a photo of her posing next to a sleek silver Mercedes convertible, our parents standing proudly beside her with champagne glasses in hand. The dealership had apparently offered them champagne to celebrate the purchase. My sister's new car warranted champagne with our parents, while my new house didn't even merit their presence. I turned off my phone completely. I couldn't bear to see any more messages from them tonight, couldn't tolerate any more reminders of my second-class status in the family. The house felt different now, tainted by their rejection, but also somehow more authentically mine. They had never been here. Their absence preserved this space as truly my own. I moved through the rooms, turning off lights, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. In the kitchen, I covered the untouched food and placed it in the refrigerator mechanically, not because I thought I would eat it, but because wasting it seemed too depressing. My body felt heavy with exhaustion, yet my mind raced with memories and realizations. I had spent 32 years trying to earn the approval of people who were constitutionally incapable of giving it to me. I had built my sense of self on the shifting sands of their validation, always trying to be good enough, smart enough, successful enough to finally be seen. I crawled into bed without removing my makeup or changing out of my party dress. The beautiful green fabric twisted around my legs as I curled into a fetal position, finally allowing tears to come. They started slowly, then built to body-racking sobs that left me gasping for air. I cried for the little girl who stood in the back row of the school play, for the teenager who walked home alone in the rain, for the college student who celebrated her achievements in solitude, and for the woman who had created this beautiful home, only to sit in it alone. Eventually, physical exhaustion overtook emotional pain, and I fell into a fitful sleep on my tear-stained pillow, the party food sitting untouched downstairs, the perfect symbol of my family's indifference. Morning sunlight streamed through windows I had forgotten to close the night before, waking me from a restless sleep. I was still wearing my green dress, now hopelessly wrinkled. My head pounded and my eyes felt swollen from crying. For a blissful moment, I didn't remember why I felt so terrible. Then yesterday's events came rushing back. I reached for my phone on the nightstand and turned it on, immediately regretting the decision. A barrage of notifications appeared. 6 missed calls from Dad, 4 missed calls from Mom, 3 text messages from Amanda, 2 voicemails. I listened to the voicemails first, my father's voice filling my bedroom. Deanna, call me back immediately. Your mother is upset about your text. I don't appreciate your attitude. Call me. The second was worse. I don't know what game you're playing, but it stops now. Your sister is devastated that you're trying to ruin her moment. We need to talk. Now. I stared at the phone in disbelief. I was trying to ruin her moment. My text had simply pointed out that they had missed my party, which they had promised to attend. How had this become about Amanda's feelings? The text messages were equally bewildering. Mom, I hope you've calmed down by now. Your overreaction yesterday was very hurtful to your sister. Dad, call me. This behavior is unacceptable. Amanda, can't believe you're being so selfish about my new car. Thought you'd be happy for me. Here's another pic of it. Maybe you can come see it today. The attached photo showed Amanda sitting in the driver's seat, sunglasses on, making a peace sign. Our parents were visible in the background, smiling proudly. I sat up in bed, anger replacing the hurt of last night. This twisted reality, where I was somehow the villain for feeling disappointed, was infuriatingly familiar. This was how it always worked in our family. Amanda's feelings were paramount, while mine were inconvenient disruptions to be managed. My phone rang in my hand, my father calling again. After a deep breath, I answered. Hello. Finally, my father's voice was sharp with irritation. Do you want to explain why you're trying to make your sister feel bad about her new car? The absurdity of the question left me momentarily speechless. When I found my voice, it was steadier than I expected. Dad, I'm not trying to make Amanda feel bad about anything. You all missed my housewarming party. You promised you would be here. We had a family emergency, he countered. Buying a car is not an emergency. It could have waited one day. That's not for you to decide, he said dismissively. The financing offer was only good yesterday. Amanda needed our support. And I didn't. This was important to me, Dad. I've worked for this house for years. It's just a house, Deanna. You can show it to us any time. Amanda's purchase was time-sensitive. Just a house. Again, the casual diminishment of my achievement stung. You know, I said slowly, if the situation were reversed, if I had bought a car during Amanda's housewarming, you would never have let me hear the end of it. That's different, he said immediately. How? How is it different? Amanda is more sensitive than you. She needs more support. The familiar refrain sparked something in me, a sudden clarity cutting through decades of conditioning. She's 38 years old, Dad. When does she stop needing more support than me? When do I get to matter just as much? Don't be dramatic, he snapped. Of course you matter. But you've always been independent. You don't need us hovering over you for every little accomplishment. A house isn't a little accomplishment, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. It's the biggest purchase I've ever made. I worked overtime for 8 years to save for it. I renovated it myself. I wanted to share it with you. Well, I'm sorry if your feelings are hurt, he said in a tone that conveyed no actual remorse. But the truth is, we never really planned to come to your party anyway. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Amanda told us weeks ago she was finalizing the car purchase that day. We didn't want to disappoint her. So you chose to disappoint me instead. And you didn't even have the decency to tell me. You let me cook and clean and prepare for people who had no intention of showing up. See, this is exactly why we didn't tell you, he said, as if his point had been proven. You always overreact. you've always been jealous of your sister's success." "Jealous," I repeated incredulously. "I have a master's degree and a senior position at my firm. I own my home outright with no mortgage. Amanda lives in an apartment you help pay for and just financed a car she can't afford. What exactly am I supposed to be jealous of?" "There you go again, always thinking you're better than her," my father exploded. "This is why we have to protect her from you. Your constant competition." I was stunned into silence. In what universe was I the one creating competition? "I have to go," I said finally, my voice hollow. "I can't have this conversation right now." "Don't you dare hang up on me," he warned. "We're not finished." "Yes, Dad, I think we are." I ended the call and immediately turned off my phone again, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. The conversation replayed in my mind, each word from my father revealing more clearly the dysfunction I had normalized my entire life. They had never planned to come. All the assurances, the confirmations, the expressed excitement, they had been lies. They had let me prepare and hope and wait, knowing all along they would be elsewhere. And somehow, incredibly, I was now the villain of the story for feeling hurt by their deliberate deception. I made it to the bathroom just in time to be violently ill, my body physically rejecting the toxic reality I had just been force-fed. Kneeling on the cold tile floor, I felt something fundamental shifting inside me, the tentative beginning of rage, where resignation had lived for so long. After the confrontation with my father, I experienced what I can only describe as a complete emotional collapse. My body seemed to physically reject the reality I had been forced to acknowledge. I spent hours alternating between sobbing and a numb, dissociative state, where I stared at walls without seeing them. For the first time in my professional life, I called in sick to work on Monday. I had never missed a day even when I had the flu last winter. But I could not imagine sitting in meetings discussing building codes and client preferences when my internal landscape had been so thoroughly devastated. "I need a few days," I told my supervisor, not elaborating. She must have heard something in my voice because she approved the time off without question. I spent Monday in bed, emerging only for water and to use the bathroom. I couldn't eat. The beautiful house that had represented such achievement now felt like a mausoleum for my familial relationships. Every room contained evidence of my hopeful preparations, the now wilting flowers, the carefully arranged furniture, the family photos I had so optimistically displayed. On Tuesday morning, my doorbell rang persistently until I finally dragged myself to answer it. Kate stood on my porch, concern etched on her face. "You haven't answered any texts or calls for 2 days," she said. I was worried. I hadn't even thought to check my work phone. The idea of communication with the outside world had seemed impossible. Kate took one look at me, unwashed hair, same pajamas from yesterday, hollow eyes, and stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "Oh, Deanna," she said softly. Something about her compassion broke through my protective numbness. I started crying again, great heaving sobs that bent me double. Kate guided me to the couch and sat beside me, her hand making small circles on my back as I poured out the whole story, my father's call, the revelation that they had never intended to come, the bizarre accusation that I was trying to ruin Amanda's moment. "That's gaslighting," Kate said when I finally finished, her voice uncharacteristically hard. "They're trying to make you question your own reality to avoid taking responsibility for their behavior." "Is it possible I'm overreacting?" I asked, the familiar self-doubt creeping in. "Maybe it really is just a house. Maybe I am being competitive with Amanda." "Stop," Kate said firmly. "I've known your family for 20 years, Deanna. I've watched them consistently prioritize Amanda over you. I've seen you make excuses for them time and again. This isn't in your head. Their behavior is objectively wrong. Hearing someone else validate my experience was surprisingly powerful. Kate stayed with me that day, making sure I ate something and encouraging me to shower. Before she left, she gave me a business card. "This is my therapist," she said. "I started seeing her after my divorce. She specializes in family trauma. I think she could help you." I called the therapist Dr. Marion Winters the next morning and was fortunate to get an appointment that afternoon due to a cancellation. Her office was warm and inviting with plants in every corner and comfortable furniture that didn't scream therapy office. "Tell me why you're here," she said after we'd settled in. I recounted the housewarming disaster and the subsequent phone call with my father, trying to stick to facts rather than emotions. When I finished, I found myself adding, "But maybe I am too sensitive. They've always said I am." Dr. Winters looked at me thoughtfully. "From what you've described, your family exhibits classic patterns of narcissistic family dynamics. Have you ever heard that term before?" I shook my head. In these family systems, there are typically assigned roles. The golden child, who can do no wrong, that would be your sister, and the scapegoat, who bears the blame for family dysfunction, that appears to be your role. She went on to explain how these dynamics work, how the scapegoat often becomes the family member who achieves the most independence because they have to fend for themselves, while paradoxically being criticized for that very self. Sufficiency. "The most painful part for many scapegoats," she continued, "is realizing that the family they've been trying so hard to please may be constitutionally incapable of providing the validation and support they seek." "So what do I do?" I asked, tears forming again. "Just accept that my family will never really see me." "That's one possibility," she said gently. "Another is to establish boundaries that protect you from continued harm while leaving room for them to change if they're willing. But the first step is acknowledging the reality of your family system rather than the idealized version you've been trying to participate in." I left that first session feeling both devastated and strangely liberated. There was a name for what I had experienced my entire life. I wasn't crazy or oversensitive or competitive. I was responding normally to abnormal treatment. Over the next week, I attended 3 more sessions, with Dr. Winters diving deep into my family history and patterns. She helped me see how I had been trained from childhood to minimize my own needs and prioritize Amanda's feelings above my own. How my parents had used my responsibility and competence against me simultaneously, depending on these qualities and punishing me for possessing them. The most painful realization was understanding that my family might never change. I had spent my entire life believing that if I just achieved enough, succeeded enough, proved my worth enough times, they would finally see and validate me. The possibility that this might never happen, that they might be fundamentally incapable of seeing me accurately, triggered a grief so profound it felt like a death. "You're mourning," Dr. Winters explained, "not for a person who died, but for the loving family you deserved and never had. This grief is real and necessary." 2 weeks after the housewarming disaster, I was still processing these insights when my mother showed up unannounced at my door. "We're worried about you," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "You haven't been answering our calls. Your father is very upset." "I needed some space," I said carefully, the techniques from therapy fresh in my mind. "I was hurt by what happened." "Well, we all get disappointed sometimes," she said dismissively, walking through my house and examining everything with a critical eye. "The trim in this dining room is a bit dark, isn't it? Makes the space feel smaller." her casual criticism of my home. This place I had poured my heart into crystallized everything Dr. Winters had been helping me understand. My mother wasn't here to make amends or understand my perspective. She was here to draw me back into the established family pattern, where my feelings were inconvenient disruptions to be managed and dismissed. Mom, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I need you to hear something important. When you all chose not to come to my housewarming after promising you would and then didn't even tell me you weren't coming, it hurt me deeply. When Dad told me you never intended to come at all, it broke something in me. Oh, Deanna, always so dramatic, she sighed. It was just a scheduling conflict. We've seen the house now, haven't we? It's lovely despite the dark trim. Let's move past this. This isn't about the house, I persisted. It's about a lifetime of feeling less important, less valued than Amanda. It's about recognizing that this dynamic isn't healthy for any of us, including her. My mother's face hardened. I don't know where all this is coming from, but I don't like it. Your sister has always needed more support. That doesn't mean we love you any less. Maybe not, I acknowledged. But it does mean you've consistently shown her more attention, more consideration, and more respect. And I'm not willing to accept that anymore. What is that supposed to mean? She demanded. It means I'm setting boundaries. I'm not going to keep participating in a family dynamic that hurts me. She stared at me as if I'd started speaking in tongues. This isn't like you, Deanna. You've always been the reasonable one. Are you seeing someone? Has someone been filling your head with these ideas? The implication that I couldn't have reached these conclusions on my own, that I must have been influenced by someone else, was so perfectly in line with how they had always invalidated my perspective that I almost laughed. Yes, Mom, I'm seeing a therapist, and she's helping me understand that what I've experienced in our family isn't normal or healthy. A therapist, she exclaimed, as if I'd admitted to joining a cult. Well, that explains it. Those people make their living convincing perfectly normal families they're dysfunctional. I think you should leave now, I said quietly. Fine, she snapped, grabbing her purse. When you're ready to apologize and act like yourself again, you know where to find us. After she left, I sat in my living room feeling physically exhausted, but emotionally stronger than I had in weeks. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary with my mother, and held it despite her attempts to dismiss and minimize my feelings. It was terrifying, but also exhilarating. Dr. Winters had warned me that when you start changing patterns in a dysfunctional family system, the system fights back hard to restore equilibrium. My mother's visit was just the beginning. For the next 2 weeks, I maintained minimal contact with my family, responding to texts with brief, neutral messages, but declining calls. I needed space to process my emotions and solidify the boundaries I was beginning to establish. Predictably, my family escalated their efforts to pull me back into our established patterns. My father left angry voicemails accusing me of tearing the family apart. My mother sent passive-aggressive texts about how some people let petty grievances damage important relationships. Aunts and cousins I rarely spoke with suddenly reached out concerned about why I wasn't speaking to my parents, clearly having heard only their version of events. Most surprising was the package that arrived one afternoon, a peace offering from Amanda. Inside was a small houseplant and a card that read, "Sorry about the misunderstanding with your party. Hope we can move past this soon. Love you." The misunderstanding framing was so minimizing of what had actually occurred that I almost threw the plant away. Instead, I placed it on my kitchen windowsill as a reminder of the work I still needed to do in establishing healthy boundaries. Dr. Winters suggested I write a letter expressing all my feelings to my family, not to send, but to clarify my own thoughts. I spent an entire weekend drafting it, pouring out decades of hurt, confusion, and anger. When I finished, I had 20 pages of raw emotion. Reading it back to myself was cathartic. I had never fully acknowledged, even to myself, the depth of pain their treatment had caused me. "What do I do with this now?" I asked Dr. Winters at our next session, showing her the letter. "Whatever feels right," she said. "Some people burn these letters as a symbolic release. Others keep them as a reminder of their truth when they start to doubt themselves. The important thing is that you've given voice to your experience." I decided to keep the letter in my bedside drawer. Something about having externalized these feelings made them less overwhelming, as if writing them down had extracted some of their poison. With Dr. Winter's guidance, I began crafting boundaries for moving forward with my family. These weren't ultimatums or punishments, but rather guidelines for how I needed to be treated in order to engage. I would not participate in conversations where my feelings were dismissed or minimized. I would not accept last-minute cancellations without explanation or apology. I would not tolerate comparisons between Amanda and me. I would exit situations where these boundaries were violated, clearly stating why. The key Dr. Winters emphasized is consistency. Boundaries only work when they're maintained. Your family has had 32 years of you accepting their behavior. They won't change overnight. As I focused on my healing, I also reconnected with the joy of my home. I decided to host another housewarming, this time inviting only friends, the chosen family who had consistently shown me respect and care. Kate helped me plan it, and we deliberately made it different from the first attempt. Different food, different decorations, different energy. The evening was everything I had hoped. My original housewarming would be full of laughter, genuine compliments on my renovation work, and people who were there because they truly wanted to celebrate with me. For the first time since the disaster with my family, I felt the pride in my achievement that had been stolen from me. As the party was winding down, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Amanda stood on my porch looking uncomfortable. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. My first instinct was to send her away. This was my due over my healing celebration. But curiosity won out. For a few minutes I agreed, stepping aside. She entered, taking in the party atmosphere with surprise. "You're having another housewarming." "Yes," I said simply, not offering further explanation. Amanda looked around at the people chatting in my living room, none of whom were family members. Understanding dawned on her face. "You didn't invite us." "No, I didn't." She flinched slightly at my directness. "Can we talk somewhere private?" I led her to my home office, closing the door behind us. "What do you want, Amanda?" "Mom and Dad are really upset," she began. "They don't understand why you're being so distant." "I've explained my feelings to them clearly," I said. "They've chosen not to hear me." "They said you accused them of loving me more than you," she continued. "That's not fair, Deanna. It's not a competition." The irony of her using the word competition after my father had accused me of being competitive was not lost on me. "You're right," I agreed. "It shouldn't be a competition. But our parents have always treated it as one, with you as the consistent winner." "That's not true," she protested, but without conviction. "Isn't it? They skipped my housewarming, the celebration of the biggest achievement of my adult life, to go with you to buy a car. A car, Amanda. Something that could have been purchased any day." She looked down, silent for a moment. When she looked up, there was something different in her expression. Vulnerability I had rarely seen from her. "I scheduled it that day, on purpose," she admitted quietly. I stared at her, not comprehending at first. "What?" "The car purchase. I knew when your party was." I deliberately scheduled the final paperwork for the same day at the same time. The confession hit me like a physical blow. Why would you do that? She sank into my desk chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Because I knew they would choose me. They always do. And I needed that confirmation. Confirmation of what I asked, struggling to understand. That I'm still the favorite, she said, her voice small. You don't understand what it's like, Deanna. You're so independent, so capable. You have this amazing career you bought, this beautiful house all on your own. I'm almost 40 and Dad still helps pay my rent. My business degree is practically useless. I can barely support myself. So you deliberately sabotaged my housewarming because you're jealous of my independence, I clarified. Anger rising. When you say it like that, it sounds terrible, she winced. Because it is terrible, Amanda. Do you have any idea how much that hurt me? I didn't think you'd care that much, she admitted. You've always seemed so self-sufficient, like you don't need any of us. Of course I care. They're my parents too. Just because I've learned to function without their approval doesn't mean I don't want it. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. I think I've always been jealous of you, she finally said. You've never seemed to need their validation the way I do. You built this whole life without their help. I don't know how to do that. The admission was so unexpected that it temporarily diffused my anger. For the first time, I saw my sister not as the favored golden child, but as someone trapped in a dysfunctional role that had stunted her development as much as my scapegoat role had wounded me. Our family dynamic hasn't been healthy for either of us, I said more gently. You've been denied the opportunity to develop independence, and I've been denied the support everyone deserves. She nodded slowly. I never thought about it that way. We talked for another hour more honestly than we ever had before. Amanda revealed her insecurities, her fear that without our parents' constant support and attention, she had no real identity. I shared my perspective on growing up always feeling second best, never quite worthy of the same consideration she received automatically. Before she left, Amanda hesitated at the door. I am sorry about the housewarming, she said. It was a selfish, childish thing to do. Yes, it was, I agreed, not softening the truth. And I'm not ready to forgive it yet, but I appreciate your honesty. After she left, I rejoined my friends feeling strangely lighter. The conversation with Amanda hadn't magically fixed our relationship, but it had opened a door to a more authentic connection, one based on reality rather than the roles we had been assigned. Over the next month, I continued maintaining my boundaries with my family. When my father called and began dismissing my feelings, I calmly said, I'm not willing to continue this conversation if my perspective is being invalidated. I can talk later when that changes. Then I hung up, despite his protests. When my mother invited me to Sunday dinner but forgot to mention Amanda would be bringing her new boyfriend to be introduced to the family, I simply left upon discovering the deception. I don't appreciate being misled about the nature of this gathering, I explained. I'll see you another time. Each small act of self-respect was difficult but strengthening. I was learning that I could set boundaries without drama or lengthy explanations. I could simply state my needs and enforce them through my actions. The most surprising development was with Amanda. After our conversation at my second housewarming, she began reaching out to me directly separately from our parents. She asked if I would recommend a therapist, admitting she thought she might benefit from professional help too. While our relationship remained fragile and tentative, there was a new authenticity to our interactions that felt healing for both of us. 6 months after the housewarming disaster, my life had transformed in ways I never could have anticipated. My house truly felt like home now, a sanctuary of peace and self-respect rather than a stage for family approval I would never receive. Therapy with Dr. Winters continued shifting from crisis management to deeper healing work. We explored the childhood roots of my people-pleasing tendencies and my habit of minimizing my own needs. I learned to recognize when I was falling into old patterns of seeking validation from those unable to provide it. Grief work is not linear. Dr. Winters reminded me when I experienced setbacks, days when the pain of family rejection felt as fresh as ever. Healing moves in spirals. You revisit the same pain points, but with new understanding each time. I established new traditions in my home that celebrated my independence rather than attempting to recreate family dynamics that had never served me. Sunday mornings became sacred time for myself, a luxurious breakfast on my porch when weather permitted, followed by reading or gardening. I volunteered to host a monthly book club, filling my dining room with thoughtful conversation and genuine connections. My relationships with family members evolved in different ways. Amanda and I established a cautious new connection based on honesty rather than competition. She began seeing her own therapist and started taking small steps toward financial independence, including getting a promotion at work that allowed her to cover her own rent for the first time. I think I used helplessness as a way to ensure I got attention, she admitted, during one of our coffee dates. It's scary learning to stand on my own, but also freeing. With my mother, I maintained clear boundaries while remaining open to authentic connection. Sometimes she surprised me with genuine efforts to understand my perspective. She asked to see photos of my renovation process and actually listened to my explanations of the work I had done. Other times, she reverted to old patterns, making dismissive comments or attempting to triangulate me with complaints about Amanda. "I notice you're speaking negatively about Amanda to me," I would say calmly when this happened. "That puts me in an uncomfortable position. I'd prefer not to participate in those conversations." Her response to such boundaries varied depending on the day. Sometimes she would apologize and correct course. Other times she would become defensive and end the conversation abruptly. I learned to accept these inconsistencies without taking responsibility for her emotional reactions. My father proved the most resistant to change. When he realized his anger and domination tactics no longer worked to bring me back into line, he switched to extended periods of cold silence, presumably expecting me to chase his approval as I always had before. When that didn't work, he made occasional awkward attempts at connection, always carefully avoiding any acknowledgement of past hurts. "How's the house holding up?" he asked. During one phone call, the closest he ever came to referencing the housewarming incident. "It's wonderful," I replied simply. "I'm very happy here." Some extended family members surprised me with their support. My mother's sister, Aunt Linda, reached out after hearing about the conflict. "Your mother has always struggled with favoritism," she told me frankly. "Our parents did the same to her and me. It's a generational pattern, but that doesn't make it right. I'm proud of you for breaking it." Her validation meant more than I could express confirmation from within the family system that my experience was real and my boundaries justified. My chosen family of friends continued to provide the consistent support and celebration of my achievements that my biological family struggled to offer. Kate, in particular, remained a steadfast presence, joining me for home improvement projects and being a sounding board when family interactions left me questioning my reality. "Look how far you've come," she remarked one evening, as we sat on my porch swing 6 months to the day after the original housewarming. "You're not the same person you were." She was right. The Deanna, who had desperately sought family approval, who had made excuses for inexcusable behavior, who had minimized her own achievements to avoid outshining her sister, that woman was gone. In her place was someone who understood her worth, wasn't determined by family validation, who could set boundaries without guilt, who could celebrate her own achievements whether or not anyone else did. The most profound change was internal. I no longer woke with that familiar knot of anxiety, that sense of never quite measuring up. I had stopped reflexively checking my phone for family messages, stopped structuring my achievements around potential parental approval. I had broken the internal chains that had limited me far more effectively than any external restrictions. Dr. Winters called this differentiation the psychological process of separating your sense of self from the family system that formed you. It wasn't about cutting ties, but about establishing a clear sense of where I ended, and they began about recognizing that their limitations weren't my responsibility to manage. The greatest gift of this difficult journey, she told me in one of our sessions, is that you're creating a new pattern. If you ever have children of your own, you've already done the work to ensure you won't pass this dysfunction forward. That thought was particularly healing, the idea that the pain I had experienced could end with me, that I had broken a chain that might have continued for generations more. By the 1-year anniversary of buying my house, I felt ready to host another family gathering. Not a replacement housewarming, but a simple dinner party with clear expectations and boundaries established in advance. I invited my parents, Amanda, and a few neutral relatives who could serve as buffers. "I would love to have you see my home," I wrote in the invitation. "Please let me know by Friday if you can attend. The dinner will be from 6 to 9. The explicit time boundaries were new for me. Previously, family gatherings had open-ended invitations that often led to extended, exhausting visits. Setting clear start and end times was a small but significant change. To my surprise, everyone accepted and adhered to the boundaries I had set. The dinner wasn't perfect. There were moments of tension, old patterns that threatened to emerge, but it was authentic in a way family gatherings had never been before. When my father made a dismissive comment about my career, I addressed it directly rather than swallowing the hurt. When my mother began comparing Amanda's and my lives, I gently but firmly changed the subject. After they left, I sat in my quiet house, feeling peaceful rather than drained. The evening represented not a perfect resolution. Our family would likely always have its dysfunction, but a new way of engaging with that reality on my own terms. If there's one lesson I've learned through all of this, it's that you cannot make people value you appropriately. You cannot force anyone, even parents, to give you the love and recognition you deserve. What you can do is recognize your own worth, create boundaries that protect your well-being, and build connections with those who naturally see and celebrate you. My house still stands as a symbol of my independence, but now it represents something even more valuable: my journey to authentic selfhood. Every room contains not just my design choices and renovation work, but the invisible architecture of my healing. Every boundary I've established, every truth I've spoken, every moment of standing in my worth has built something far more significant than physical walls and a roof, a genuine home for my spirit. If you've ever felt unseen or undervalued by the people who should love you most, know that your worth isn't determined by their capacity to recognize it. Build your own house of self-love brick by painful brick. The foundation may be laid in tears, but what rises from it can be more beautiful and lasting than anything constructed on the shifting sands of others' approval. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who couldn't see your worth? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of healing and self-discovery. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that your value is inherent, not something that needs to be earned or proven to anyone else.